Montreal, the everyday, and the extraordinary. The Elias Macco Show on CJAD 800.
All right, welcome back to the Elias Macco Show. Now, Montreal is celebrating the 150th anniversary of Mount Royal Park this year. Park designed in the 1870s by famed landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted. Its design remains as important today as it was a century and a half ago, and our next guest wants to make sure it stays that way. Our pleasure to welcome Sue Breitkoff onto the program, president of the Olmsted Network. Sue, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Elias. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I have it here that the Olmsted Network is a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit. I'm sure the name is not a coincidence. So tell us about the Olmsted Network and what you do.
Yeah, so we protect and support historic landscapes across North America. And I say historic landscapes because so many of them, there were so many designed by Frederick Law Olmsted Sr., his two sons, and then the subsequent firm. And so many of them came to fruition, not all of them did. So we talk about it like that. And, you know, a lot of advocacy work in the U.S. and a little bit in Canada, as well as we, you know, bring people together to talk about all of the issues around parks.
So let's talk about Frederick Law Olmsted Sr.'s work here in Montreal. And you recently visited Mount Royal Park. How do you think it stands 150 years later?
It is a phenomenal park. I mean, I was really blown away. I've been to a lot of Olmsted landscapes on the continent, and it is a pretty fine specimen. You know, and Olmsted himself said, I'm going to mess up the quote, but he was pretty taken with the land that he was working with, and he considered it really very much the peak of his career.
Well, what should we know about how he viewed? But you touched on that there. But what else should we know, especially on an anniversary year like this year? What else should we know about how Olmsted viewed Mount Royal Park?
Well, I mean, in general, he looked at land as, you know, he really wanted to draw out its characteristics that were kind of extant. And, but he did kind of some manipulations in general of the land. So kind of building up one part and recessing another to emphasize different things. And, you know, a lot of his landscapes were very much flat. And so I think that's probably one of the things that attracted him to it was that it, you know, the topography was pretty amazing. And he really liked to do like a kind of hide and reveal. So you have like a copse of trees and then a view onto, you know, onto the horizon or something like that. And so you kind of see those hidden vistas all over the park.
Have we done a good job, when I say we, the city of Montreal, Montrealers, have we done a good job at preserving Mount Royal Park?
I would say so. I was pretty impressed with how well it's kept up, and it's very much, my understanding, been a partnership, a really strong partnership between the city as well as Les Amis de la Montagne. You know, for the last 40 years, they've been working closely with the city to kind of augment the work that they're doing. So there's still a lot of work that the city is doing on maintenance, but then any kind of special projects, Les Amis comes in to work with them. So it seems like a symbiotic relationship.
Any bit of lore that we should know about just how it even came about, how Olmsted ended up designing Mount Royal Park?
So, you know, I'm always afraid. I'm not an Olmsted historian myself because there are people who have studied him for years and years. And so I'll probably mess up any of the stories, but he, just like in other jurisdictions, people heard about his work. I mean, he did extensive work in Massachusetts. You can't really like throw a stone without hitting an Olmsted landscape there. So not too far away, he did Niagara Falls. And so the word spread, and he came to Montreal. And he was also like in Calgary. He did some work in Ontario, but I believe that it was first in Montreal that he worked in Canada.
And, you know, I know a lot of Mount Royal Park, and, you know, I've read that Olmsted envisioned Mount Royal as a natural refuge in the heart of the city. And certainly when you look at Montreal today, it's exactly what it is, right in the heart. We have this beautiful, big park. How do you view like Mount Royal, compared to so much of the other work he did? He did Central Park in New York City as well. So I just wonder where Mount Royal stands among all of the incredible work that he did over his career.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty emblematic of his work, like I was saying. Central Park was his first, and it was really messy in terms of the politics and a lot of nefarious activity on the part of some politicians. So, I think in subsequent landscapes, he was able to be more free, and as his reputation developed, he really came into his own. And he brought together a team that all worked together really well. He was very good at identifying talent. And so when you get to Mount Royal, you really see like the humming of the system, like all things going, the different paths, the pathways, not parkways in probably the way we view it now, but like literally the roads that weave through the park. I mean, he never liked a straight line, so everything kind of meanders through the park. And now they're paved, but they initially were not for automobiles, for carriages to go through. But it does, this design works very well for the modern age as well.
Sue Breitkopf is with us, president of the Olmsted Network. We're talking about the legacy of Frederick Law Olmsted, the designer of Mount Royal Park. It's the 150th anniversary of Mount Royal Park. Sue, and a more broader question here on just how we view public lands, public parks, in urban cities. I know every city handles this differently, and I know sometimes it can be very contentious when we talk about, public lands and public parks in urban cities. How do you view that debate and how it plays out in cities today across North America?
Yeah. It's I think very much a tough one, and I was really thrilled to see that so much of Mount Royal is protected, because the thing we're seeing, particularly in the U.S., is that parkland is viewed as space that's yet to be developed by the jurisdictions, and that's something that we're really fighting against, because once the public space, the green space, is gone, it's not coming back. So whether that's a housing development or a parking lot or an office park, like it's not coming back to parkland anytime soon. So it is really important. And, other than the community benefits, the health benefits, there's so much benefit to the local climate in terms of, it's like avoiding the heat islands, flooding, like all kinds of things. Like each tree is really working for the neighbors. And so it's just vitally important, and something that's probably 60-70% of my job is just talking to different parks and, about how they can fight or protect their landscapes and their communities, because they're really under threat. And, I would say, even though the public land in the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. is currently under threat as well. And one of the things about Olmsted Sr. is that he very much believed that there was a correlation between public space and democracy, because, it's kind of hard to gather in a building, right? You want to gather a lot of people to talk, to protest, whatever that is. Those are kind of cornerstones of democracy. And so public space is vitally important for expressing different viewpoints.
Sorry, finish your thought.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway.
And Sue, you wrote an op-ed that was published in the Montreal Gazette. You call Mount Royal one of the world's great urban parks. To wrap up, when you visited the mountain, was there one vista, one viewpoint, one part of the park that took your breath away that you want to highlight?
Well, I really loved Daniel Chartier, who's kind of like the original there with that park. He did so much work. He took us on the tour, and there was a circle, like a kind of a target on the top, and I wasn't expecting to see that, and that was pretty exciting, just to like land at the top and then be able to look out over the city.
Sue, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Stu Bredkoff is president of the Olmsted Network. When we return on the Elias Macko Show, Beryl Wiseman's going to join us. He was a friend of Michel Mizrahi, who died on Monday in that shooting in Côte de Neige. And we're going to talk to him about the life and legacy of his friend and turning a tragedy into a positive. That's when we come.
Close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Here's Canada the liftoff.
Available on iHeartRadio. Montreal, the everyday and the extraordinary. The Elias Macko Show on CJAD 800.
All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. It's our pleasure to welcome Beryl Wiseman into our studios. He's president of the Institute for Public Affairs of Montreal. Beryl, thanks so much for joining us again.
Elias, always a pleasure with you.
So, listen, this week saw your writing on the front page of the National Post. And it was a piece that you published honoring your friend, Michel Mizrahi, the innocent bystander killed in the terrible attack in Côte de Neige on Monday. Let's talk about this man.
Let me just clarify something.
Yeah.
He was a friend. I've known him for 30 years. I was asked to write that as a perspective on what it means. Mm-hmm. And my point in writing it, for those who've read it, just the title alone, the bells that tolled for Moshe Mizrahi was taken from John Donne's famous poem, "Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." And it's a warning to people that life is dangerous. We're all involved with each other. And the point of the piece, yes, it went into what he was, a wonderfully elegant, generous man. But the point was, the message was, and I'm very gratified that it got through in the emails that I've received. Don't politicize this. Mm-hmm. No, neither side. This happens. Life is dangerous. It's not a question for public debate nor for public profit from any side or any community. It's a tragedy of a man, and we have to have the courage as a society to live with the fact that life is dangerous and maintain our own self-dignity.
And I know you're not responsible for headlines, but it struck me here. Like Michel Mizrahi moved. He was born in Lebanon, right? Born in Lebanon.
Different headline online than in the paper.
In the paper,
the paper was my headline.
But he moved from born in Lebanon, moved from Israel, ends up in Montreal.
Beirut to Israel.
Yeah, Israel to Montreal, and then he loses his life in a terrorism incident in this country.
His life. There was a wonderful novel. I believe the author was Thomas Sowell, called "A Child of the Century." It was written in the 1980s. Michel Mizrahi's life was a reflection as a child of the past 50 years. His father was died during the Scud missile attacks on Tel Aviv in the 1991 Gulf War. A child of one of his siblings, he's one of 7 children, Moshe, was killed at the Nova Film Festival, and now he dies.
Yeah,
this is almost if you wrote a screenplay, it would be difficult to absorb that. Mm-hmm. It's a reflection, not a child of the century, but it's a reflection of our times we live in. And that doesn't mean that we have to immediately run to our corners and hug our teddy bears and claim security and demand security and be fearful. You can't be fearful. Mm-hmm. There's a wonderful documentary called Agnelli. It's about Giovanni Agnelli, the former president of Fiat. It's on Crave HBO. You can see it. It's beautifully done. But there's one particular poignant scene. One of the young journalists who's involved in interviews a senior executive for Agnelli, who was with him in the years called the Año de Plombo, the years of lead, 78 to 80. The Red Brigades were killing industrialists. They murdered Prime Minister Aldo Moro. And many people were leaving Italy, many people of Agnelli's rank. Agnelli made it a point every day at lunchtime to walk down the Via Roma, the main street in Turin, where the main Fiat factory was, because he felt it was his responsibility to maintain his own self-respect and to give courage to the people around them. That's the lesson from this. We can't succumb to the fear. We have to praise his life and understand that the best tribute we can make is to move away from our obsession with safety. There is no safety in life. So this journalist asked the executive, wasn't it dangerous for Mr. Agnelli to do that, to walk down the street? And in a typical Milanese, Torinese fashion, this executive says, and who said life is not supposed to be dangerous?
But, I'm not pushing back here, but I'd say, I think we have every reason, especially in Canada in 2026, to expect safety.
No. You have an obligation to try to make it safe. You have an obligation to be engaged with different communities, to find out their grievances, their understandings, get across facts, not opinion. But you have no expectation of it, because that would imply that people in authority really have control over society. And I think it's been proven in our country, particularly in the past 11 years, they don't.
Do you see a connection here? Because last week, Beryl, and as I mentioned, you're president of the Institute for Public Affairs in Montreal. You held an event last week, and I was one of the people honored at this event. I can't believe I made this list with lots of politicians
of courage.
And important people on that stage. But I wonder how you feel. You do this event last week, and then just a few short days later, we see this on our street.
What has one to do with the other? The event last week, and I spoke to you about this before we went on air, so I'll repeat it very briefly. The event last week, I've done many interviews, and the reaction, both from French and English media, has been, you know what? This has never been done before. Maybe our impression of what's on the streets is wrong. Because the people who are really running society, who have jobs, who employ people, they don't have time to go out on the streets and manifest their opinions. So all we see is the haters, because everybody needs clickbait. What happened? That tragedy that happened on Monday has nothing to do with the fact that we have to come together, and it doesn't reduce the fact that those alliances are there. As I say again, we've had 2 generations of parents raising children with the expectation of normalcy in life and instructing them to be safe. This is a recipe for disaster for any society, because no other generation ever went through it. There was always the instructions to children in their comportment, in their intelligence, that yes, from parents, we brought you into this world. It is not a perfect world, and you have to be prepared for it.
But Beryl, it sounds like, to me, this week must have been emotional and filled.
It's always emotional. We are all involved with each other, as John Donne wrote again in that poem, and John Kennedy's famous use of it in one of his speeches, "Every man's death diminishes me." Emotions are part of who we are, so we deal with it. We don't cringe in a corner. We don't retreat from engagement. We're adults. The world is difficult. Life is difficult. Moshe Mizrahi proved it in his life, overcoming a death and war, and still believed in maintaining a countenance, a comportment, that life, after all, is not always just about politics and conflict. It's about how you are and how refined you are.
So what should we be talking about this week? I'm still trying to digest the events of Monday, trying to parse it out. What do you think?
You talk about a man who overcame so much pain and loss in his life, maintained an elegance about him that is sorely missing. Someone once said that if you don't have, if you don't comport yourself, if you don't dress yourself in a certain rigorous way with some style, your intellectual rigor falls apart. We have a lot of that. He recognized that. We talk about the lessons that were important to him, and maybe if we had a more refined and elitist mentality in our society, if we encouraged refinement and elitism, we wouldn't have sickos like this incel guy who can't attract women and takes it out on the entire world and starts shooting. Maybe, he'd be a little more successful.
Does it...
It's not a reason for panic.
Yeah.
And it'll happen again.
Does it have to?
Yes, because that's human nature. When has it not?
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that, Beryl.
When has it not?
Yeah, I hear you. Beryl, listen, coming up next on the program, it's going to be Leslie Roberts, of course, City Councilor Leslie Roberts, who was on the stage last week with yourself and I. So
you and Leslie have been the most courageous, open, eloquent voices against an anarchic hatred in our streets over the past years, which is gladly, frankly, coming to an end. The statistics are remarkable the past 9 months. Montreal has gone from being one of the cities per capita of the worst number of incidents, both against Jews and disruptions generally against Christians, to one of the best. Who's vying for first and second? Toronto and New York.
Well, interesting.
Well, it's not interesting. They've let
gone the
loose
other direction.
insanity. Yeah. Except it's not all on. It's again. You ask what can we expect? It's on the people. One thing that, and I would address this to all my colleagues in journalism. One reporter in media, in electronic media, in print, has asked a critical question. Everybody's analyzing what's happened in New York and the election and the crazy left wingers. I won't even call them socialists or communists. Socialists or communists had some kind of doctrine. They're just anarchists. They didn't ask one question. It's one word. Turnout. These people got elected with 20% turnout. Mandami himself got elected with 34% turnout. Yeah. You asked, what should we do? Engage. If people can't, citizens of any city, of any place, cannot just complain. If they don't vote, if they don't engage in the public process, it's on them.
Beryl, got to leave it there.
Sure.
Great words this week in the National Post. I'll direct all of our listeners to go seek them out. When we return, Leslie Roberts will join us for our weekly City Hall segment. He's on.
Close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Here's Canada the liftoff.
Available on iHeartRadio.
Missed something?
Subscribe to the Elias Macko Show podcast to catch up.
Available on iHeartRadio and wherever you get your podcasts.
It has been a very busy week. We had flooding over the weekend in the West Island and in the South Shore. Cleanup happening for a lot of people. And then, of course, on Monday, we had that terrible attack. Leslie Roberts from the City of Montreal will talk about those events and more next.
Miss something? It's never been easier to catch up.
Find CJAD 800 podcasts on the iHeartRadio app. iHeartRadio.
Or click audio on our page.
CJAD800.com.
CJAD800.com.
An iHeartRadio experience. You and a pal with weekend gold tickets to Lasso Montreal. Thomas Red. Mumford & Sons. John Party, Old Dominion, Carly Pierce, and more. And the prize gets even sweeter with 3 nights at Residence Inn downtown Montreal and $1,000 cash. Download the free iHeartRadio app. Listen to this station for 10 minutes and enter to win. Lasso Montreal. Every day you listen is another chance to win.
Close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Here's Canada the liftoff.
Available on iHeartRadio. Montreal, the everyday and the extraordinary. The Elias Macko Show on CJAD 800.
Well, a lot has happened over the last week. We had flooding that hit parts of the island and the South Shore. Many people dealing with water damage in their basements, and not for the first time in the last few years. Of course, the events of Tuesday in Côte-des-Neiges and the deadly shooting there. Let's get to Leslie Roberts, City Councillor for Peter McGill, and he's on the Executive Committee as well. Leslie, welcome back to the program.
Thanks. Good morning, Elias.
Listen, let's just handle this back to back. I want to just talk about the flooding. And, CJAD over the weekend, we went to air at night and almost around the clock here, dealing with listeners that had flooding in their homes, and they're not too happy about it. I've seen people talking online. They want class action lawsuits. They really blame, municipal leaders. And obviously, it's not just City of Montreal and the demerged boroughs as well, the demerged cities as well. What should listeners know about the rain over the weekend and blame and all of that?
First and foremost, kudos to CJAD as always, community leader. Times when you guys aren't supposed to be on the air, you stepped up, and myself and my colleagues from Pierrefonds were texting back and forth as we heard what the citizens of the West Island were saying. To answer your question specifically, it's an ongoing challenge, right? I mean, we had, somewhere between 120 and 150 millimeters of rain in, it's the equivalent of a week, and a rainy week within a couple of hours. To be honest, I don't know any infrastructure in place that wouldn't be challenged. That being said, we know the problems specifically in those areas hit, whether it was Pierrefonds or DDO. We know that these are ongoing challenges, and even Soraya, the mayor, was saying that this is something that's going to take time. That being said, I can assure you, and I know that the voters and the residents in Pierrefonds, Roxborough know this, no better municipal leader to handle a crisis because, unfortunately, the experience of late in recent years under his, while he's been in office, is Jim Bass. He has stepped up time and time again. He hears, he visits. He took Soraya on a tour of area. He has made it quite aware and put it on the front burner so that even though it's the West Island, it's on the front burner at Montreal City Hall in the city proper.
So, for those who've got basements that have been flooded now a couple of times here in the last 5 years or so, what's the message here? Do we need to start rethinking about basement living in certain areas just because some of the messaging I heard is like there's no system ever in the world that's going to be able to handle 150 millimeters of rain in 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
So do we have to be rethinking our homes a bit?
Well, I don't know if it's about rethinking the homes. I think it's upgrading the infrastructure. You mentioned that I'm in Peter McGill, which is right downtown. We all know the construction along St. Catherine. I did a tour there last week, Elias, and I went inside the actual, in the fences and down below. They're digging back to the 1800s, and they're replacing it. It's almost like a root canal for the city. Now, I know it's not as old, of course, on the West Island, but it is also dated. There's a number of things that have changed. Weather patterns being the first thing. And I think, I know that communities that are dealing with issues of flooding in other parts of the world are upgrading infrastructure due to technology or whatever, but also the homes. I'm obviously not an urban planner. I'm obviously not a contractor or an architect. But to answer your question, absolutely, we have to change with the increased threats that we're facing in our world today, and this is one of them.
All right. The other big news item that we should be talking about here is what happened in this city in Côte-des-Neiges on Monday. Yeah. We saw a citizen and a police officer lose their lives. We've had a few days now to digest the events of Monday. I wonder what you think, Leslie, we should be talking about today.
That's the question. I heard your conversation with Beryl, shedding light on Michel Mizrahi and his life and the struggles and what he faced. I read a letter to the editor from the rabbi at Chabad NDG talking about, the mitzvah is the way to move forward. Do goodness out of, that's who Mr. Mizrahi was. And I'm that kind of guy where I say we can't do what we got to be realistic. Don't get me wrong. We need to address it. The politicians need to address it. That's already underway. But in our day to day, we can't live in fear. And out of his memory, I think the rabbi hit the nail on the head when he said, do what he did, which was to make other people's lives easier and helped others along the way. So that would be my answer.
And I know there's been calls here on banning guns and banning the type of rifle apparently that was used here. I think some people are shaken and they don't view the city as safe as maybe they should. What are your thoughts on that front?
Well, I know the mayor spoke. She said we should, do more. And truth is, with every challenge that we face, we can always do more. The question is, where do you draw the line? I've had this discussion with members of my family who live in other parts of the country who say that's not the solution here because it's not going to change, and it's not the gun that did it, it was the gunman. The debate goes on. I'll let those of the higher pay grade to determine that, and obviously different levels of government. I don't know if that now is the time to have that discussion. Trying to get back to what we know in terms of life in Montreal is where we should focus. We know NDG is multicultural. We know that one victim was a Muslim, one was a Jew. And in this challenging times where we see that because of international news that there is that challenge, there is that tension, maybe, and we saw, those two communities come together, where we had Jews at the mosque for the funeral, and we had Muslims at the synagogue for the Jew who died. I mean, there again, I'm trying to pull out the goodness of a terrible situation.
Leslie, listen, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your words. Thanks for coming on today, and we'll catch up again soon, okay?
Thank you, Elias. That's
Leslie Roberts, City Councillor for the Peter McGill District in Ville-Marie, and he's on the executive committee responsible for the English-speaking communities and the downtown core. When we return on the Elias Macko Show, Mark Carney is speaking right now. He's been asked about his call with U.S. President Donald Trump. He apparently had a call yesterday with President Trump. You're going to hear about that when we return. Let's
close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Gives Canada the liftoff.
Available on iHeartRadio.
You should have a debate in English because we're still in Canada. And the day you decide that, no, we are no longer part of it, okay, fine. Change the rules.
Kareem, are you just trying to upset Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon by saying...
Yes, yes, I am. I think it's nonsense. I think it's absolute horse...
Kareem Boulos on the Big Five this morning. It was Kareem and Carolyn Kotze joining us this morning. If you missed it, head over to the CJAD 800 website. Head over to the Big Five podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast to catch up on the Big Five. Marissa Ramnanan producing this one, in for Maxim Kadot. Maxim Kadot behind the board, in for Jay Farrar, musical chair, same great show, I love it. We'll be back at it on Friday. Have a great Thursday afternoon.
Close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Gives Canada the liftoff.
Available on iHeartRadio.
You're listening to the Voice of Montreal.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
An iHeartRadio station.
This newscast is brought to you by Meira. This week, our whole chicken from Volaille des Cantons is only $2.99 per pound. Meira, the best kept secret in town.
Close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Gives Canada the liftoff.
Available on iHeartRadio.